July 12, 1962, Moscow, Soviet Union, Red Square. The sun hangs low over Red Square, turning the cobblestones a dull orange under the July haze. Children clutch coins in tiny fists, weaving between soldiers in crisp uniforms and merchants shouting prices. The scent of freshly baked bread drifts from nearby stalls, mingling with the faint metallic tang of the Kremlin walls. Amid the noise, a small truck rumbles into view, its sides painted a cheerful blue and white. The words, "Ice cream for the people," gleam in Cyrillic. Inside the cab, Lieutenant Sergei Ivanovich Petrov, a KGB officer assigned to Department D5, adjusts his cap nervously. His hands rest lightly on the steering wheel, but every muscle in his body is tense. Today is not about sweets, it is about influence. The back of the truck is lined with neatly stacked cones, chocolate-dipped and vanilla-swirled. Behind the facade of summer delight, Petrov's team has embedded a psychological operation. Each ice cream cone is paired with a discreet flyer, written in neutral language, extolling civic duty, loyalty to the motherland, and the subtle advantages of compliance. The goal is simple, yet profoundly insidious, to create positive associations between pleasure and the state. As the truck stops, the tailgate opens with a hydraulic hiss. Children rush forward, their faces lighting up at the sight of cold treats. Mothers look on, skeptical at first, but the ease of access and the smiling agents handing out ice cream dissolves their doubts. Petrov steps forward, his gloved hand extended to accept coins, making a show of fairness and generosity. His eyes scan the crowd, noting reactions, who hesitates, who smiles, who shares a cone with a friend. Every micro-expression is logged in his notebook later for analysis. "Try the new vanilla chocolate swirl, comrade," an agent calls, handing a cone to a young boy. The boy licks eagerly, unaware that he has just participated in a controlled morale experiment. The sound of laughter and delight masks the deeper intent. Petrov knows the stakes. This is Red Square, visibility is high, scrutiny is constant. Any misstep could arouse suspicion from civilian authorities, rival agencies, or even foreign intelligence observers lingering in the background. Yet every successful distribution strengthens the illusion. The state is generous, the people are content, and loyalty is sweet, almost literally. As the truck moves down the square, the agents engage with subtle hand gestures, nods, and eye contact, reinforcing the social proof of participation. Elderly citizens smile politely, some whispering approvingly about the thoughtfulness of the government. Unknown to them, Petrov's data sheets record every favorably inclined citizen. This is the KGB's first lesson in Pavlovian propaganda, link desire to the regime. At 1607 hours, Petrov signals the team to pack up. The ice cream cones are nearly gone. The crowd disperses, buzzing with excitement. Yet in the shadows, the agents linger, watching reactions, noting conversations, analyzing clusters of influence. The operation is over for the day, but the psychological imprint has been made. Petrov steps back into the cab, removing his cap to wipe sweat from his brow. He feels a flicker of unease. Beneath the veneer of playfulness lies the stark reality. Children have been conditioned without knowing, mothers influenced without awareness, and the very act of sharing a simple treat has been weaponized. The truck rumbles away, leaving behind empty cones, sticky fingers, and the subtle echo of state control embedded in ordinary pleasure. Petrov knows this is only the beginning. The sweetness of ice cream is a doorway. Beyond it lies a vast network of subtle manipulations, social nudges, and quiet coercion, the silent art of influence perfected by the KGB. August 3, 1962, Lubyanka Headquarters, Moscow. The corridors of Lubyanka buzz with muted urgency. Officers move swiftly, dossiers clutched under arms, their polished shoes clicking against marble floors. Behind locked doors, in a room illuminated by fluorescent glare, a group of recruits sit stiffly at wooden tables. On the walls, posters depict smiling Soviet families enjoying public amenities, parks, ice cream, and cultural events, all under the watchful gaze of the motherland. At the front stands Major Anatoly Sokolov, mid-40s, his uniform precise, eyes cold but calculating. He taps a pointer against a chart that details population clusters across Moscow, Leningrad, and provincial cities. "Comrades," he begins, voice firm, "today we train not with weapons, not with espionage, but with influence. Your tools are simple: ice cream, candy, and civility. Your objective is not just to feed the people, it is to guide their loyalty." The recruits exchange uncertain glances. One, a young woman named Elena Morozova, whispers to her neighbor, "We are selling treats, or mines." Sokolov hears nothing, continuing, Each public distribution is a lesson in human behavior. Observe. Record. Adapt. A child smiles, a mother hesitates, a shopkeeper nods. These are data points, comrades. Every cone handed out is a signal. Every reaction, coded, logged, analyzed, feeds the greater machine of the state. On the table beside him, trays of sample cones are displayed. Chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry swirled with precision, their colors vibrant. Sokolov picks one up and demonstrates, offer without expectation, present without bias, but always remember, the gift carries a message. The pleasure is the conduit, loyalty is the outcome. The recruits practice their techniques. They hand cones to mannequins, mimicking gestures, nods, and smiles. Each movement is critiqued. Too abrupt, arouses suspicion. Too slow, missed opportunity. The exercise is repeated dozens of times until muscle memory aligns with the subtle choreography of influence. Sokolov moves among them, inspecting notebooks, adjusting posture, correcting glances. The Soviet citizen is intelligent, observant, wary. You must anticipate skepticism. Your kindness must appear organic, spontaneous. Yet it is always calibrated. Morozova records everything meticulously, noting the psychological angles emphasized: reward, repetition, subtle reciprocity. The training is as much about internalizing control as it is about distributing sweets. By the end of the day, the recruits understand the doctrine fully. Manipulation disguised as generosity is far more powerful than overt coercion. In the hallways, other agents practice exit interviews, pretending to chat casually with citizens post-distribution. Questions are innocuous. Did you enjoy the treat? Would you like another next week? But beneath the simplicity lies data collection, moods catalogued, tendencies recorded, potential influences identified. Every interaction feeds the KGB's vast, invisible network of psychological insight. By nightfall, Major Sokolov stands alone in the training room, trays cleared, recruits gone. He picks up a single cone, turning it in his gloved hands, inspecting the swirl. The world underestimates ice cream, he mutters. They see delight. We see control. Outside, the streets of Moscow continue as usual. Children laugh, mothers chatter, and soldiers march. None realize the lessons being refined in shadowed rooms, that every sweet handed out today is a thread in a tapestry of quiet domination, woven with the precision of statecraft. The morning fog hangs low over Yaroslav's main square, dampening colors and muting sounds. Horse-drawn carts clatter against cobblestones, vendors set up their stalls, and a chill wind carries the scent of damp earth and freshly baked bread. At the edge of the square, a nondescript blue truck rumbles to a stop. Its sides display the familiar slogan, "Ice cream for the people." Lieutenant Petrov stands in the cab once again, accompanied by two junior KGB agents. This is the first provincial rollout of the ice cream operation, a real-world test of tactics perfected in Moscow. Unlike the capital, Yaroslav's residents are less accustomed to staged generosity, making their reactions more valuable for data collection. The back hatch opens, revealing neatly stacked cones, chocolate-coated and pristine. Petrov steps forward, gloved hand extended to accept coins from children under careful observation. Every smile, every hesitant reach, every whispered comment is noted in a small black notebook, later coded and digitized for analysis. A cluster of teenagers approaches, curious and cautious. Petrov hands them cones with practiced cheer, nodding and offering encouraging words. One boy, Mikhail, licks slowly, eyes scanning the agents as if searching for a trick. Petrov's gaze locks with him, neutral but firm, conveying authority without threat. Within minutes, Mikhail relaxes, sharing his cone with a younger sibling, mimicking the behavior the KGB hopes to normalize, altruism linked to state-sponsored pleasure. Petrov notices a local shopkeeper, Anastasia, observing from her doorway. She doesn't join, doesn't approach, but her expression softens as her neighbors interact with the agents. Subtle influence spreads not through coercion but social proof, compliance by observation. Petrov marks her reaction carefully. She is a potential node for spreading loyalty indirectly. By 1100 hours, the cones are nearly gone. Agents disperse quietly, leaving behind children with sticky fingers, parents with polite smiles, and an atmosphere of goodwill tinged with suspicion. In the shadowed corners, the team gathers data, noting patterns: who smiled first, who hesitated, who questioned. Each movement, each gesture, each choice is recorded with the precision of a laboratory experiment. As the truck departs, Petrov glances back at the square. The crowd disperses, laughter fading, conversations resuming. Yet beneath ordinary life, a subtle psychological imprint has been left. Ice cream, a symbol of innocence and delight, has become a vector for influence. And the KGB knows the value of an idea implanted gently, repeated consistently, and never questioned openly. In the following days, the notes from Yaroslav are reviewed at Lubyanka. Patterns emerge. Ice cream cones handed out at specific times generate measurable increases in cooperative behavior, minor favors, compliance with local rules, and tacit approval of state messaging. These early tests validate a deceptively simple principle: pleasure paired with authority strengthens loyalty without overt enforcement. Petrov leans over the map in his office, tracing the route of the provincial campaign. Every city along the river is a future target, every public square a stage. The operation is expanding, moving from controlled experiments to full-scale psychological manipulation across the USSR. He taps a finger against Yaroslav. "The people think they are enjoying a treat," he murmurs. "We are enjoying influence." October 15, 1962, Leningrad, Soviet Union. A brisk wind whips along the Neva River as agents unload crates of ice cream from a long convoy of government trucks. The city is alive with autumn energy. Trams rumble over tracks slick with rain, vendors call out from makeshift stalls, and the scent of roasted chestnuts drifts from street corners. Amid this, Lieutenant Petrov oversees the distribution team, now larger and more coordinated than in previous missions. Each agent is assigned a sector of the city, instructed not merely to hand out ice cream but to engage citizens in micro-interactions designed to reinforce loyalty. A casual question here, a compliment there, small gestures meant to create bonds between the public and the state. Petrov watches closely, noting which neighborhoods respond enthusiastically, which remain cautious, and which resist entirely. At 1032 hours, a young mother, Irina, hesitates as her children approach the agents. Petrov signals subtly, allowing the junior officer to step forward and offer a cone with a friendly smile. Irina accepts, initially wary, then relaxes as her children squeal with delight. Petrov records the micro-expression on her face, a flicker of surprise, followed by pleasure, into his notebook. This is the essence of the operation, momentary joy as a seed for trust. Meanwhile, on a nearby bench, a group of workers from a local factory watch the scene unfold. They murmur among themselves, noting the fairness of the distribution. Petrov observes their body language, mentally tagging their reactions for follow-up surveys. Each interaction, no matter how small, feeds a growing intelligence database: who smiles, who questions, who passes along what is given. The operation is not without risk. Foreign journalists occasionally wander near the distribution sites, and Petrov's team must maintain a veneer of spontaneity while adhering to strict protocol. One misstep could expose the experiment as coordinated, undermining the subtlety that makes it effective. Every gesture, every word, is calculated, even the laughter of children is data. By 1200 hours, the Leningrad operation is complete. Ice cream cones are gone, sticky fingers have retreated home, and Petrov's notebook is filled with coded observations. In the following weeks, agents will review the notes to refine tactics, timing, and engagement strategies for subsequent cities. Back in Moscow, Major Sokolov examines the reports. Patterns are clear. Repeated exposure to state-sanctioned generosity increases compliance and fosters positive associations with the government. Ice cream is no longer a treat, it is a tool of psychological engineering. Petrov, walking through the rain-slicked streets, feels the weight of the operation. He sees children playing, mothers smiling, workers chatting, and knows that each act of seemingly innocent kindness is shaping loyalty, molding perception, and silently strengthening state influence. As twilight falls over the Neva, the agents gather for a debrief. Petrov notes one final detail: even as citizens enjoy the ice cream, the presence of the uniformed agents and structured distribution leaves an imprint, pleasure intertwined with authority. It is subtle, nearly invisible, but undeniable. In the Kremlin, a quiet voice in Lubyanka observes the reports, a smile barely perceptible. The experiment is working. Across the Soviet Union, the sweetness of ice cream is becoming a weapon of the mind. November 2, 1962, provincial towns across the USSR. Fog blankets the early morning streets of provincial towns, and the crunch of boots on frostbitten cobblestones echoes under the dim glow of street lamps. The blue and white ice cream trucks have become a familiar sight, rolling into squares and marketplaces as if part of the town's natural rhythm. Petrov supervises operations from the front seat of a truck, notebook in hand. Today's mission is ambitious: distribute thousands of cones across multiple towns in a single day, each stop carefully scheduled to maximize exposure. Agents are stationed at intersections, doorways, and public benches, observing reactions while engaging with citizens. At 0947 hours, a man named Dmitry approaches cautiously. He accepts a cone for his son, exchanging polite nods with the agent. Petrov notes the man's body language, slight stiffness, hesitant smile, a glance toward the truck suggesting curiosity mixed with suspicion. This is valuable information. The team observes not only acceptance but the subtle negotiation of trust, the silent calculus every citizen performs when interacting with the state. Nearby, a group of teenagers dawdle at the edge of the square. The agents offer them cones without ceremony, allowing peer influence to do the rest. Within minutes, laughter spreads, and the initially reluctant teens begin sharing cones and stories. Petrov records each reaction, recognizing a pattern. Pleasure coupled with social conformity amplifies influence exponentially. By 11:30 hours, the first wave of towns is complete. The agents regroup in a neutral location to review observations. Notes indicate which distribution methods produce the most cooperative and positive behavior: direct engagement, repeated exposure, and visible organization, all tied to the pleasurable stimulus of ice cream. Petrov realizes the operation is evolving from an experiment into a finely tuned instrument of state psychology. Meanwhile, the KGB monitors long-term effects. Surveys discreetly conducted in the following days reveal measurable increases in reported civic pride and willingness to comply with local initiatives. Mothers report fewer complaints from children, shopkeepers display subtle deference to uniformed personnel. The correlation is clear: the simple act of giving treats, repeated and orchestrated, cultivates loyalty and normalizes obedience. Petrov rides in silence as the trucks move to the next town. The cold wind stings his cheeks, but he barely notices. He is focused on the patterns emerging, the subtle echoes of influence spreading through the towns like invisible frost. Every smile, every shared cone, every whispered compliment reinforces the psychological architecture the KGB has begun constructing. As the sun dips toward the horizon, agents pack up for the day, leaving behind squares littered with discarded cones and sticky footprints. To the casual observer, it is simply a day of pleasure. But for Petrov, it is a web of influence, carefully spun across the USSR, one ice cream cone at a time. Evening descends. The towns sleep unaware of the invisible lesson imparted. Joy can be a conduit for control, sweetness a tool for shaping thought. And somewhere in Lubyanka, analysts pore over Petrov's meticulous notes, calculating the next move in the quiet war of the mind. December 12, 1962, Moscow, Soviet Union. Snow falls thick and heavy across Moscow, blanketing streets, tram lines, and Red Square in quiet white. Inside Lubyanka, the air is warm and perfumed faintly with ink and wax from sealed envelopes. Major Sokolov leans over a map stretched across a heavy oak table, tracing the progress of the ice cream propaganda campaign across the USSR. The provincial data from Petrov's teams fills rows upon rows of columns, charts, and coded markings: citizens influenced, neighborhoods engaged, behavior patterns observed. Comrades, Sokolov begins, his voice calm but commanding, our domestic operations are showing measurable success. But influence does not stop at our borders. Lieutenant Petrov, now promoted to captain, stands beside him. He nods, understanding what Sokolov implies. The campaign has drawn attention beyond Soviet soil. Western intelligence networks have occasionally noted the trucks, the sudden generosity, and the visible organization, but they cannot detect the underlying strategy, subtle psychological conditioning. Foreign visitors, Sokolov continues, especially diplomats and journalists in Leningrad and Moscow, must experience the same carefully curated environment. Ice cream is a medium for perception, and perception shapes policy. When a foreign observer sees order, satisfaction, and compliance, it reinforces the narrative of the USSR as benevolent and competent. Petrov flips through photographs from recent distributions. Smiling children clutch cones, mothers beaming gratitude, workers nod respectfully to uniformed agents. Nothing overtly political, nothing confrontational, yet each frame carries the subtext: the people are content, the state is kind, loyalty is rewarded. Sokolov's eyes linger on one particular photo: a British journalist, notebook in hand, accepting a cone with a polite smile while unaware he is a participant in the operation. Sokolov taps the photo. Even outside our borders, subtle influence is possible. One cone can create a positive bias that lasts for weeks. Two cones, repeated, creates a narrative that cannot easily be shaken. Ice cream is not just a treat, it is diplomacy. At 1,400 hours, the team reviews new protocols. Agents are instructed to identify areas with higher concentrations of foreign observers, embassies, hotels, and cultural centers. Special distributions will be executed to ensure that every photograph, every anecdote, and every smile feeds the narrative of order and goodwill. Petrov feels a mixture of pride and unease. On one hand, the campaign's reach is impressive. On the other, the strategy relies on a careful balance of control, subtlety, and repetition. Missteps could expose the operation as manipulative, undermining decades of carefully constructed trust. By nightfall, Moscow is quiet under the heavy snow. The blue and white ice cream trucks stand ready in secret depots, primed for the next day's rollout. Each cone is a calculated instrument, each smile a carefully observed variable. And somewhere in the capital, a small team of KGB analysts compiles reports on both domestic and foreign perceptions, calculating the ripples of influence as though the country itself were an intricate experiment. Petrov steps outside, breathing the cold air, watching the city glimmer under the streetlights. In the distance, laughter echoes faintly from a nearby square, children playing with sticky fingers. For them, it is summer joy in winter's chill. For Petrov and the KGB, it is another victory in the silent war for hearts and minds. January 8, 1963, Lubyanka headquarters, Moscow. The year begins cold, with frost biting through the narrow streets and wind whistling between brick buildings. Inside Lubyanka, analysts hunch over desks stacked with notebooks, charts, and coded reports from across the USSR. Lieutenant Colonel Viktor Kuznetsov, head of Department D5, oversees the evaluation of months' worth of ice cream operations. Rows of statistics fill the board: numbers of citizens engaged, demographic breakdowns, repeated interactions, and observable behavioral changes. Each province, city, and town is charted meticulously. Kuznetsov taps a pointer at Moscow's chart. Notice here, he says, districts receiving consistent distributions show a 27% increase in public compliance with local initiatives, a 14% rise in civic participation, and a measurable reduction in dissent reports. Petrov, seated beside him, flips through his own field notes. He reads micro-annotations, subtle glances, shared cones, laughter, hesitation, trust cues. Each observation correlates with patterns in the larger dataset. It is one thing to hand out ice cream, it is another to measure the cognitive and emotional impact of a sweet treat on loyalty. Even minor interactions matter, Kuznetsov continues. A mother smiles because her child receives a treat. That smile becomes associated with the state. Repetition amplifies the effect. It is Pavlovian, but refined. A junior analyst hesitates before speaking. Colonel, we've also observed that foreign correspondents report positively on Soviet civility after these events. Not the ice cream itself, but the perceived generosity. Exactly, Kuznetsov replies. The campaign influences both domestic morale and international perception. Ice cream is our messenger, but the narrative is what sticks. Petrov jots down notes. The operation is evolving into a sophisticated network of feedback loops: distribution, observation, recording, adjustment. Every action is analyzed for effect, every subtle interaction quantified. The psychological reach extends beyond the cones themselves into the way citizens perceive authority, fairness, and state benevolence. By mid-afternoon, the team reviews projections for the next quarter. Provinces that received irregular or inconsistent distributions show weaker loyalty metrics. Kuznetsov emphasizes consistency. Pleasure without predictability may amuse, but it does not bind loyalty. Repeat. Re-engage. Reinforce. This is how influence becomes ingrained. As the meeting concludes, Petrov leans back in his chair, reflecting on the scope of their work. What began as a simple initiative, a blue and white truck with frozen treats, has matured into a controlled experiment in behavioral engineering. Each citizen, unwittingly participating, is a variable in the KGB's ongoing study of human response to subtle incentives. The snow falls steadily outside, blanketing Moscow in quiet white. Inside, the reports continue to accumulate, each number a testament to a hidden system of influence. Ice cream, once a mere pleasure, has become a tool of statecraft, shaping perceptions and loyalties with precision. March 3, 1963, Helsinki, Finland. A crisp spring breeze sweeps across the city harbor, carrying the scent of brine and coal smoke. Finnish children laugh, chasing seagulls along the waterfront, while tourists snap photographs of the painted wooden buildings. At first glance, nothing seems unusual, but tucked behind a quiet alley, a blue and white Soviet ice cream truck glints under the morning sun. Captain Petrov, accompanied by 2 agents fluent in Finnish, oversees the distribution. Unlike domestic operations, this is an international psychological experiment, aimed at subtly shaping foreign perception. Diplomatic staff, journalists, and local citizens alike are encouraged to engage, receive, and photograph the cones. The goal: cultivate a narrative that the USSR is benevolent, organized, and generous, even beyond its borders. At 1015 hours, an agent hands a cone to a young British diplomat observing the scene. Petrov notes the diplomat's subtle reactions: hesitation, polite acceptance, and eventual smile. Each is coded and logged, small emotional responses that could influence reports back to London, affecting impressions of Soviet civility. Across the square, photographers capture images of children and smiling citizens enjoying their cones. These images are strategically disseminated through controlled channels, feeding both media narratives and intelligence analysis. Back in Moscow, Lubyanka analysts receive encrypted reports from Petrov's team. They cross-reference the international reactions with domestic data, analyzing how pleasure as propaganda transcends borders. The method is deceptively simple: the association of the USSR with positivity via small, tangible experiences. Ice cream is the vector, perception is the payload. By mid-afternoon, Helsinki's operation concludes without incident. Agents collect remaining cones, leaving behind a scene of happiness carefully choreographed to appear spontaneous. Petrov reviews the photographs and notes: diplomats smiled, local children were engaged, and foreign journalists recorded scenes for their reports. Every interaction is catalogued for future campaigns. Later, in Lubyanka, Major Sokolov studies the international files with satisfaction. The campaign has proven its dual utility: domestic morale boosted, foreign perception subtly influenced, and the KGB's reach extended quietly into neighboring states. Ice cream, once thought trivial, has demonstrated remarkable versatility as a tool of soft power. Petrov, back in his Moscow office, pores over the final notes. A single thought lingers: the operation works because it exploits the human desire for simple pleasures while embedding the state's presence in memory and emotion. Children remember the cone, adults remember the order and generosity, and even foreign observers carry impressions shaped by orchestrated delight. As twilight descends over Moscow, the streets glimmer with residual snow and the faint echoes of children's laughter. In the shadows of Lubyanka, the KGB knows that the campaign is not just about ice cream, it is about controlling perception, reinforcing loyalty, and wielding influence invisibly, one cone at a time. April 17, 1963, Novosibirsk, Soviet Union. The wind cuts sharply across Novosibirsk's frozen streets, carrying the scent of coal smoke and wet snow. Inside a small square, the blue and white ice cream truck arrives with the same deliberate precision as in Moscow and Leningrad. Children rush forward, faces pressed to the windows in anticipation, while adults exchange approving glances. On the surface, it is a scene of joy, but Petrov's eyes note something else: subtle patterns of dependence forming. "Comrades," he mutters to his team, "observe carefully. Look beyond the smiles." Agents distribute cones with practiced cheer. A mother hesitates, glancing at her children, then accepts. Later, she is seen returning to the square repeatedly, checking if the truck will appear again. Children form informal queues without guidance, expecting the next visit. Even shopkeepers begin to subtly align their behavior, offering assistance and maintaining politeness in the hopes of being favorably included. Petrov records the micro-behaviors meticulously. These are unintended consequences. Citizens are learning to anticipate the state's rewards, becoming conditioned to link enjoyment with government presence. What began as morale building has evolved into behavioral conditioning, the edges of which even the KGB has yet to fully quantify. At 1430 hours, a local teacher approaches the truck with a question: "When will you return?" Petrov responds neutrally, citing scheduling. The teacher nods politely, yet her eyes betray a subtle reliance on the predictable generosity of the agents. Petrov notes it as a case study: pleasure now drives expectation, expectation fosters compliance. Back in Moscow, Lubyanka analysts review field notes. They realize the operation's influence is not strictly voluntary, it is gradually shaping citizen behavior in ways that are unconscious, subtle, and self-reinforcing. The ice cream has become both a reward and a mechanism of control. While the team anticipated loyalty gains, they had not foreseen the degree to which citizens would internalize the regime's presence as a source of comfort and stability. Petrov steps into the twilight, snow crunching beneath his boots. He watches children leaving the square, sticky fingers clutched around empty cones, parents chatting quietly. He recognizes the duality of the operation: delight and dependency, influence and subtle coercion. As the blue and white truck disappears down the narrow streets, Petrov reflects on the power of such a simple tool. A cone of ice cream has become more than a treat, it is a conduit for shaping thought, perception, and behavior, quietly embedding the KGB's reach into the daily lives of citizens. The operation continues, expanding city by city, square by square. And somewhere in the shadows, Major Sokolov knows that this silent, sugary campaign may leave a lasting imprint on the psyche of the Soviet people, a lesson in obedience delivered one scoop at a time. May 21, 1963, Lubyanka Headquarters, Moscow. The late spring sun filters through narrow slits of the Lubyanka's high windows, casting long, deliberate shadows across the desks piled with reports, photographs, and coded charts. Major Sokolov stands at the head of the room, flanked by Lieutenant Colonel Kuznetsov and Captain Petrov. A new series of data has just arrived from provincial towns, Leningrad, and international observation points. The numbers are clear: the ice cream campaign is more effective than predicted. Sokolov taps a chart highlighting compliance rates, public engagement, and favorable perception among foreign diplomats. "We have quantified the power of small-scale positive reinforcement," he announces. Ice cream distributions are no longer merely morale exercises, they constitute a fully operational psychological tool. The public perceives generosity, yet our influence grows subtly beneath the surface. Petrov presents the latest field notes. He details patterns of anticipation, repeated engagement, and the emergence of behavioral norms aligned with state expectations. Mothers in provincial towns now adjust daily routines to coincide with truck arrivals. Teenagers imitate organized behaviors, forming orderly lines and assisting younger children, without any explicit instruction. Each small act reinforces the KGB's invisible architecture of influence. Kuznetsov adds, even foreign observers report admiration for Soviet civility in public spaces. The effect extends beyond domestic morale, it shapes perception abroad without overt propaganda. Sokolov nods thoughtfully. We are creating a doctrine: pleasure as persuasion, consistency as control, subtlety as authority. Ice cream is the medium, behavior and perception are the outcomes. It is simple, replicable, and scalable. Petrov notes a critical realization: while originally designed to influence morale and loyalty, the campaign has reshaped daily expectations. Citizens now unconsciously link satisfaction and comfort to the presence of state actors. The KGB has discovered a method of preemptive conditioning, embedding authority into ordinary, enjoyable experiences. By 1700 hours, the doctrine is formalized in internal manuals. Sections outline best practices for distribution, engagement strategies, recording and analyzing behavior, and scaling operations to international contexts. The ice cream campaign becomes a blueprint for future psychological operations, a symbol of the KGB's evolving sophistication in social engineering. Petrov steps outside into the early evening, the city glowing with streetlights reflected on wet pavements. Children's laughter echoes faintly from a distant square, a reminder of the campaign's duality: joy in appearance, control beneath. He realizes that a seemingly trivial act, handing out frozen treats, has been transformed into a strategic instrument of influence, quietly molding loyalty, shaping perception, and extending the reach of the state into the hearts and minds of citizens. As darkness falls, Lubyanka hums with quiet activity. Analysts continue to compile data, officers refine methods, and the doctrine takes root. Across the Soviet Union, citizens remain blissfully unaware that their smiles and gratitude are the very metrics by which the KGB measures its invisible power. July 1, 1963, Moscow, Soviet Union. The streets of Moscow are alive with summer energy. Children run through fountains, mothers chase after them, and the smell of baked bread and roasted chestnuts drifts through the squares. In the midst of this ordinary bustle, a familiar sight appears: a blue and white ice cream truck, its cheerful slogan gleaming in the sun. For most, it is a simple delight, a reprieve from the heat. But for the agents behind the operation, it is the culmination of months of careful planning, observation, and refinement. Captain Petrov watches from the cab as agents distribute cones. Each interaction has been perfected: a smile here, a casual comment there, a small gesture of kindness, all designed to reinforce positive associations with authority. Children giggle, mothers exchange polite nods, and even the elderly accept cones with a faint, appreciative smile. It seems natural, spontaneous, but every detail has been orchestrated, every reaction meticulously recorded. In a shadowed alley nearby, analysts follow the operation remotely, monitoring the patterns of engagement and documenting subtle shifts in public behavior. Lubyanka receives reports in real time, neighborhoods where loyalty appears to increase, clusters of citizens demonstrating heightened compliance, and even foreign observers noting the apparent generosity of the state. Petrov reflects on the transformation. What began as an experiment in morale building has become a sophisticated psychological mechanism, capable of shaping perceptions and behavior on a broad scale. Ice cream, once a simple treat, has proven to be a powerful instrument of influence, leveraging pleasure, anticipation, and repetition to embed loyalty and trust. As the truck departs for the next square, Petrov observes citizens continuing their day, smiles lingering, conversations humming with lightness. Unseen, the KGB's metrics continue to grow, recording subtle patterns of engagement and compliance. The city moves on, oblivious to the invisible architecture of influence that surrounds it, carefully designed to guide thought and behavior with a light touch. Back at Lubyanka, Major Sokolov reviews the reports one last time before the day ends. The doctrine is complete: pleasure as persuasion, visibility as reassurance, repetition as reinforcement. It is a blueprint for psychological operations that transcends a single city, a single nation, even a single generation. Petrov steps into the evening streets of Moscow, the summer air warm against his skin. Children's laughter echoes faintly in the distance, and he allows himself a rare moment of reflection. The KGB has learned a profound lesson: control need not be overt, influence can be subtle, almost imperceptible, embedded in moments of joy. One ice cream cone at a time, the hearts and minds of the people are quietly shaped, leaving a legacy of sweet influence that will linger far longer than the taste itself.